I'm Zach Martin with Trey Nation of Ghost Hounds. And before we get into Ghost Hounds, the new album that's out and the new video that you can see on YouTube and probably some television stations across the nation, we are brought to you today by Autism.org. If you're a small business, well, actually any size business with 5 or more employees and you're operating during 2020 and 2021, you might be eligible for what's called ERC, Employee Retention Credits, which are checks given to you by the IRS, but you got to make sure you got the right people working on your side. That's why we are pointing you to ercautism.org. They have accountants and lawyers, and the best part is it's a win-win for your company and for us as well here at NEWHD as we try to create job opportunities for people on the autistic spectrum and with other disabilities. Now we're going to San Antonio, Texas for the lead singer of Ghost Hounds. I do believe you're the lead singer, Trey Nation. Welcome. Hey, Trey. Trey got knocked off all of a sudden. There he is. What did you do, Trey? Now you've got yourself muted, Trey. What are you doing?
I have no idea what's going on. It's Mercury
All right, well,
retrograde,
that's it.
Technology.
I just wondered, do most of the lead singers actually have an idea what's going on? I mean, are the guys making
No,
faces
man.
behind you?
We just live in our own world, as deluded as we can be, the more deluded the better.
You bring up an interesting point, your own world as a lead singer or a
Mm,
front person, front
mm.
man, however you want to describe it. And it really is a very precarious situation because you could be the lead singer of a band and you're also just as replaceable as any other member of the band like we've
Yeah.
seen in rock and roll history, right?
Hmm.
But you definitely bring some presence to the stage, which we see in the video of Dirty Angel. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the production of the video? And I've just a odd question for you.
Yeah.
Do you think videos are important anymore? Do they still have a place in the industry? Why do we do them?
Well, it does seem to be, short form video seems to be what everyone likes to have more of these days, like TikTok, your Instagram videos, long form videos, I think still do have a place. But hey, Johnny.
Hey guys,
Hey, better late than never, Johnny.
I apologize. I think there was some mix up in the calendar. It got listed as 2 p.m. Pacific time, so I thought
Mm,
it was going to be early
Oh,
today. I apologize.
well, yeah.
nice.
Listen, I'm the oldest guy here, and there's no way I'm staying up that late. I let's see, that would be 5 o'clock my time. I'm finished at dinner by 4:30, guys. Then I had bingo. I had called bingo at the old folks' home. It would just be too late for me. But welcome aboard, Johnny. We were talking to Trey Nation. We were discussing about the life of a lead singer, and then we got into the video for Dirty Angel, and I asked him the question. Is it still necessary to make videos nowadays? Because you don't see them on MTV, I don't think
Mm,
anymore. And Trey
right.
was telling us that people like short form videos to look at, whether it's on TikTok. So now you're up to date with what was going on here on this particular
Awesome.
episode.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment there.
Well, okay,
Yeah.
that's good. But you want to give us a little bit more about how you put together the video? Where'd you find the girl? All of those kind of things.
Sure. Yeah. We had an excellent team that got that going. We shot out in California. Um, the idea that music videos you don't see them on MTV anymore is an interesting creates an interesting requirement to make them, because I think that the way people consume media now is, so, as like Trey was saying, like all short form video, whether it's TikTok or Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts, um, and us creating a full length video and going out there and doing that shoot was, I think it's an integral part of any artist or band, is making sure that you're, creatively outputting content, especially in a world where people, are taking videos of what they're eating for lunch. And, how do you make that cut through? So, we decided to kind of go with that that idea for the video because it was very striking, you know, seeing the horse and seeing Mia on the horse, and you know, she's more of an athlete, you know, because there's so many moves and tricks that they were doing that were physically demanding. So that was just kind of a way to separate what you see on, you know, someone filming with their iPhone and seeing something a little bit more striking.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, and I will just give you a little bit of history. I remember early on in my broadcast career, maybe about 10 years into it in the early 90s, and when we were adding songs to our playlist, our first question is, well, is there a video that supports the song? And if they didn't have a video that supported the song, because like everything else, I guess I would assume that most people probably don't understand what goes into getting records on the air and how we have only so many slots, and you got rotations and you got these equations of what you're looking for and you're trying to get your ratings. And we always looked at it back in those days that, well, hey, if you don't want to pour money into the single, why should we pay attention to it? So over the years, it's the only way I think nowadays to get people to pay attention to the audio is by having the video, like you said, and making it available on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, or wherever else is going to be the next generation social media outlet. So good job on that. It looks like the video to me, you put a lot of effort into it, and it's really slick. Who are the people that were responsible for that? Because I think they need some kudos in this.
Definitely, yeah. Well, our manager, Dalen Bauman, she is such a facilitator, and the director, Dilly, you know, she put together an amazing team of, you know, all the videographers and, you know, all the people that were on set with us. So yeah, they definitely deserve a big kudos. They did a wonderful job.
Well, let's move over and talk more about Ghost Hands. You opened up for the Rolling Stones, ZZ Top. You played with Garth Brooks and Bob Seger. Recently performing with Sheryl Crow, Darius Rucker, who's a great guy, at the American Rodeo in Dallas. You're going to release your fourth album, which will come out later in 2023 in Gibson Records. Seems like you're very busy. So I'm going to ask you questions that everybody watching would have on their mind. When you guys are on tour, you're on the bus or however you're transporting across the country, wherever you go, is there anything, Johnny, that Trey does that annoys you? And Trey, is there anything that Johnny does that annoys you?
I played the fifth. No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, we're all really close. I think just the dynamic of being on the road with a bunch of people, you know, you spend a lot of time with each other and learn a lot about each other. But no, I wouldn't say annoy necessarily. I think that, you know, we all have a lot of respect for each other, and, you know, maybe you know, I think anytime you're alone, you maybe act a little bit differently than when you're with other people. But, you know, we're all, Trey might disagree, but that's my outlook on it.
No, I agree. I think it's very hard for us to annoy each other in a real way, because we love each other very much and we really enjoy being able to live our dream together. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, you guys are probably going to end up president and vice president of the United States with those answers. So politically well done. Trey, as a lead singer, and again, when we look at the history of rock and roll, I do remember there was a time when some of the lead singers, they didn't feel like they were the real musicians in the band, including Mick Jagger when he was with the Rolling Stones. He's like, I got to play an instrument, you know, to be a musician like the rest of the guys. Do you feel that pressure, or you just okay with just getting out there on the microphone and not worrying about playing guitars and playing a bass or playing a drums, or maybe you know how to play all the instruments better than everybody else?
In my mind, I do. No, actually, it feels really great to be surrounded by people who've spent just as much time honing their craft as I have, and it is very, very comfortable feeling to be on stage with those guys.
All right, wonderful. Now I'm going to ask Johnny this question, and I'll come back to Trey with a similar question. Johnny, who are some of the instrumental, all right, that's a good way of putting it, the most influential guitarists that you've studied? And I will just say this. Everybody that's in performing arts, we're all on the stage differently. And for me, My favorite disc jockeys growing up were Don Imus, Scott Meany, Charlie Kendall, and Dan Ingram. I stole the best parts of each one of them and I created my own self with that. Is that what you've done as far as your guitar playing?
Yeah, definitely. I think there are three sort of stages into like finding your own voice as any kind of performer. Is you first you imitate, your people who influence you. Then you assimilate those influence. You put them all in a mixing pot and you blend them together, and then you end up. The last part is innovating, and that's where you kind of like combine everything to find your own flavor and probably pull from a bunch of different sources. For me, that was Jimi Hendrix, Stevie Ray Vaughan. I think most guitar players will probably have those two on that list, but also cats like Tomo Fajita. I also, when I was in college, I would listen to a lot of horn players, a lot of jazz, and just try and singers as well, and try to just grab phrasing from everybody. I listened to a lot of James Brown and Earth, Wind and Fire, and I grew up in Brooklyn, so I also was around a lot of hip hop growing up. So I just pulled from all those different influences there, and just tried to combine them into something cool and original.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. And every time anybody mentions James Brown, I think of Eddie Murphy doing the hot tub thing. Murphy, hot tub, get in the hot tub. Trey, what about you as far as vocalists or other rock bands or maybe jazz bands? Who are some of your influences?
Oh man, there's so many. I grew up listening to a lot of gospel and Christian contemporary music. So there's singers like Fred Hammond, Tone, um, Joy Williams. But then also I love Macy Gray. I love Beyonce. Coldplay is one of my favorite bands. Mute Math, Paramore. So there's a lot. There's just a lot. I think that's the beautiful thing about my generation is that we we've allowed ourselves to, be as eclectic as we want with our musical tastes, and it's
I,
shows in the
I,
music.
I think that young people, what I love about their taste in music is they genre bend. They go
Hmm.
all
Yeah.
over the place. My daughter, for instance, we got in a, we were in this room with this guy named Guy. That's his name. And he was a
Nice.
doo-wop guy. He had a doo-wop band, still does. And my daughter's sitting there and he's talking about what he thought was a Frank Sinatra song. And my daughter, without missing a beat, 22, she goes, "No, that's Dean Martin." I'm like, "All right, zinger."
Nice.
Yeah.
And then she'll listen to like highway. I would say there's a I guess car rock, if you want to call it, the late 50s, where you have Chuck Berry, "Here Comes Old Flat Top," I forget the name of the song, which inspired the Beatles. And you'll hear a lot of these songs when you go to California Adventure and you go to Radiator Springs. So they play it
Right.
over the speakers and all the kids love it. And I just like, I admire the fact that unlike my crowd, that a lot of young people are willing to give things a chance and listen to a lot of different types of music. And I think that's enriching on many levels. Now, let's talk about the recording of your new album, which I don't have the actual name of that album for some reason. I know it's your fourth one. I know it's on Gibson Records. And I know Johnny is in the recording studio that you probably used, I would assume.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
not fake background, is it? It's not a green screen.
No, it's all real.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about recording your new album. Some of the things that you learned about yourself, and maybe some of the things that you thought, oh, maybe I got to go back in and really study this area more closely as I progress.
One thing that was cool about recording this next record was I feel like all of our albums are sort of like a snapshot in time, or like a journal entry of where we're currently at. And there's always a natural evolution of, collaborative works. And so us playing together and, being, playing shows and recording so much together and playing so much music together has brought itself to like a sort of more evolved sound. So generally what we do is, our other guitar player, Thomas, is a fantastic songwriter and storyteller, and he'll write with a fellow named Kevin Bow, and they'll bring us a song, or they'll bring a song into the studio. And, our goal is to make it come to life and and also capture an energy. So how we do that is, you know, we generally record the songs when we're still pretty fresh with them ourselves, because then you're getting a more raw output from each musician that's in the room. And we record it all live, so we're all in the same room and we hit record and we just play music with our friends and have fun and try to capture that vibe, you know.
Fantastic. Is it multi-track? What system are you recording on? What do you use?
So there's a ton of outboard gear in here that we go through. It ultimately all goes in through Pro Tools and multi-track, but we run through an API board, the one that's behind me, and all this other outboard gear that's through us. But, you know, we try to be traditionalists in terms of rock and roll, and so a lot of the gear that we use is the same type of gear that was used, you know, back in the day when on the old school stuff.
Well, it's really important to be able to put together albums that you can do live in concert. That's one of the things that the Beatles always had trouble with, especially when you get the Revolver, Sgt. Pepper, and all the different effects that were used in the recording of the album. And, you know, I remember a time when we used to use tape, the multi-track tape. Oh, the smell of it was just great. Ampex, and
Yep.
we would have various multi-tracks together. I think there were times where we had like multiple 8 tracks and multiple 16 tracks. It was nuts.
Nice.
And then you put it all down to a half inch, and then you would master it, and it would go out to further production, whether it was on vinyl or CD or whatever
Right.
they wanted to put it on. And I could just, you know, just remember what that was like, that experience for me. And I think that in the recording arts side, it's really a great thing to learn and study, because you learn so much by recording. And what I mean by that, you learn a little bit more about mathematics. Your brain starts to wire things, input and output. You pay attention to sound, and then this is how the masterpiece is crafted. So I've been listening to some of your songs, and you guys did a great job in the recording process. I do have one question about this, and this is really nerdy stuff. Did you record live, or did you multi-track it where the drums and bass was coming in one day, and then, you know, everybody else was adding their different tracks? What was that
No,
process
no,
like?
it was live. So we, like I mentioned, we were all in the same room and playing as if we were playing a concert. And I think the biggest thing that I believe, and I spent a bunch of time learning about, you know, and working in studios in New York City and stuff like that. But, you know, capturing a vibe and energy, especially in the genre of rock and roll and blues, is extremely difficult to do when you're recording things at different times. That doesn't mean that, you know, I didn't go back and maybe in one song like overdub a guitar solo, but all the tracks were recorded live. You know, sometimes we'll have Trey redo his vocal because there was a lot of bleed in the mic since he was in the room with the drums and stuff. But it was as live as could be.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got some funny stories about artists erasing what the previous guy did before, and then he would come back and they would erase it. It would. I'll give you an example. And this is, I'm probably going to start trouble with this, but Rich and Chris Robinson were not getting along very well. So Rich tells me, he goes, yeah, man, I don't know if this album's ever going to get done. I'll go and record my stuff. Then my brother comes in later. He records over what I just did. And then I go back in and record over I just, it's funny stuff. So hopefully that there's a producer in a room who's the adult in the room that just goes, I'm going to take an extra recording and put it here on safe, just in case, you know.
Yeah. We usually do a safe take. With Dirty Angel, I think what you hear on the record is the first take we did, and then I think we did one for safe just in case. But yeah, usually, you know, we'll do like maybe three takes a song, and if it's not there, then, you know, we'll do another one. But generally, it's pretty. I mean, just like you would see at a show, you know, like there's no do-overs in a live concert, so you gotta be able to, you know, perform when that red light turns on.
Yeah, and then a guy like me comes along. They hear 3 takes. I go, I'm just going to go with the first one, because that's usually the best. You don't even realize it. Trey is from San Antonio. Johnny, you're from Brooklyn. 2 questions you can put these together is, how did you come up with the band name Ghost Hounds, and how the hell did you guys all meet to form this band in the first place?
Trey?
Well, the name Ghost Hounds actually comes from the mythology surrounding Robert Johnson. Um, you know,
Oh, yeah,
he went down
Route
to the
61, right? Yeah.
yes, sir,
Robert
sold
Johnson,
that
the deal with
soul.
the devil, all of that stuff.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so he sings about the hellhounds, nipping at his heels when the devil's coming to collect on that bet. So, yeah, Ghost Hounds is like a PG-13 version of that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Which is kind of funny, being that you grew up on Christian music and stuff like
Hmm.
that, to
Yeah,
take
it's
that
very
detour.
ironic.
Yeah.
Cross over to the dark side, yes. And how we all met is actually like a oddly organic story. That's all happenstance, and it was all circumstance. But I was introduced to Thomas in 2018 through a mutual friend, and we just started hanging out, playing some guitars, and just had a moment one day where we kind of looked at each other and we're like, "Hey, man, should we like put a project together here?" And from there, because we both shared the same sentiment, and I'm probably because we're both guitar players, but we wanted to make music that we like to listen to. And in today's musical climate, you don't necessarily hear a lot of guitar-driven rock and roll bands. There's
Mm.
the trend has been, the more contemporary trend doesn't really encapsulate that. So we decided to, get something going, and I had known our bass player Bennett Miller and our drummer Blaze Lanzetta for a long time from playing on the New York City scene. So I gave them a ring, and then I discovered Trey. Not discovered like he wasn't doing anything, but I became hip to him by seeing a short video on Instagram, where of my friend's Instagram, where Trey was singing, and I reached out to him. We found out we like lived very close to each other in Brooklyn
Yeah.
because Trey was in New York at the time, and we got together, and he hopped on board, and then our piano player Joe Monroe, he's down in Pittsburgh. He's from this area in Beaver County, and he was around and came in, and we just loved what he was playing, and we kind of just hit the ground running from there and haven't looked back.
Well, I'm going to do something I never do with anybody. This is the first time ever. I'm the professor, the doc of rock. I actually do have a PhD and two masters, and I don't know why I'm in radio. Think about that. But I want you to, I'm going to challenge you to go on a little bit of a discovery, because you mentioned Robert Johnson, Trey, and Johnny got the whole Ghost Hounds thing, and you mentioned Jimi Hendrix. So for Trey, I want you to go and find Traveling Riverside Blues by Led Zeppelin, give that a listen, and then give the original recording by Robert Johnson a listen. Can you do that?
Heard. I
Okay,
can
you
do
got
that.
it. Johnny, I'm going to share a story with you about All Along the Watchtower, a Bob Dylan song. And we all know, if you are a fan of Jimi Hendrix, that was recorded by Jimmy.
Mhm.
But did you know that there was another rock band member who was a member of Traffic, and he ends up playing acoustic guitar on that version with Jimi Hendrix. But something else happened during the recording that very few people know. Noel Redding and Jimmy weren't getting along. So Jimmy is actually playing the bass on that particular recording.
Huh.
So when you listen to it now, you'll listen to it New Year's, and you go, "Oh my gosh, Jimi Hendrix also killed playing the bass."
Nice.
So you can
Yeah,
discover
yeah.
who the guy is in that recording. I'll let you figure that one on your own. But he did play with Fleetwood Mac. He also played with on the album "For All Things Must Pass" by George Harrison. George Harrison. And if I give you the answers to all of this stuff, then it's no fun, because then you don't get to pick up something on your own. So you got those two things. And then when you listen to some old Led Zeppelin, the first album, just do some research and find out how many of the songs in that album are really from Willie Dixon, and how close they are to the original recordings. So I got you guys. The next time you're on the road or doing something, now you got some things to talk about and discover. And I got a feeling that the album after the next one is going to be sort of influenced by the research that you're going to do. So,
Yeah, man. Thank you for
isn't that
dropping some
cool?
bombs of knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fun. I mean, what have you always wanted to ask a radio disc jockey, Johnny? And then I'll go to Trey.
Ooh. Well, it goes right on par with, you just dropping some knowledge on us. I imagine that you probably have, listened to a ton of music, but, what did that look like before you got into radio? Did you have like a huge vinyl collection? Did you go to a lot of concerts? Did you, like what does your basement look like in terms of musical media?
Okay, that's a great question. I'll just tell you, my first concert ever was 1979 at Madison Square Garden, Blue Oyster
Nice.
Cult and Black Sabbath. And
Nice.
I went to Catholic school, so it was really hard to convince my parents to let me and my friend Chris go to that show. But we went on the train, and that very night there was a fire. So my parents are waiting on Eighth Avenue. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, Eighth Avenue over by the post office by Madison Square Garden, and all of
Yep.
this fire equipment is going in, and they're like, "Whoa, what happened?" And I came out smelling like marijuana, and I had the munchies, and I was not allowed to go to a concert again for some quite time. I loved collecting vinyl, especially when I would go to a concert. I'd go to Jack's Music store over in Red Bank, New Jersey, and I would
Hmm.
buy every single album that was available for the act that I just saw. So if I saw the Cars, I'd go get all the Cars albums that I didn't have. If it was Black Sabbath, yeah, all the Black Sabbaths and Blue Oyster Cult. So those are one of the things that I would do when I would buy my vinyl. When I'd buy my vinyl, I would look for value. So Physical Graffiti for me in 1979 by Led Zeppelin was the ultimate. Funny thing about that particular album, I always thought that the album cover, this big building, was in the UK. Turns out it was about 7 miles from where I grew up.
Nice.
It's on 8th Street and St. Mark's Place. As you go
Hmm.
towards Thompson Park, it's over on the right, the Physical
Hmm.
Graffiti building.
Wow.
On the other side, on 6th and 8th, a little in, about maybe, I'm going to say 1,000 feet or less on the right hand side as you go east is Jimi Hendrix Electric Lady Studios.
Yep.
So I was always like really trying to find out more of the behind the scenes about the music. And then I had a summer job and we would listen to the radio, WNEW New York, where rock lives, favorite disc jockeys. And you can hear them right now in NEWHD New York, Charlie Kendall in the afternoon from 3 to 6. It's a radio streaming platform that brought back 1027 WNEW FM, New York, where rock lives, to life. And we create job opportunities for people with autism and disabilities because they could do this from their home, obviously. But I would sit there and I learned how to scrub floors, and I'm scrubbing the floor, and a song would come on, and I would was with my friend Glenn, and I would name the album, cut, the producers, the year it was released, some things about the band members with every single song that
Wow.
would play, and I was like really quick at it. My mom, what are you going to do knowing all of that stuff, studying all of that stuff? What is wrong with you? How are you going to make
Yeah.
money doing that? I'm like, well, I ended up making money doing just that.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
Learning, always fascinated by, I don't know, it was something tactile. There was something magical with the radio to me. And I had this picture in my mind what that was like. And then when you get into it, well, your reality is killed. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The reality kills your imagination, so to speak.
We all
Yeah.
dream in ideals, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But funny story, just to tie some things together is I was at a session at Electric Lady Studios, which was really at the time was like really magical for me because I knew the history and actually a fellow who built Electric Lady with Jimmy is a fellow named Eddie Kramer, who we're lucky enough to have done some work with on our first album and became close with him. He's the coolest guy you'll ever meet. And,
Yeah.
we actually, the studio I'm sitting in right now, initially, when we first put it together, Eddie was involved with that too. So the same guy who created Jimi Hendrix's studio, Electric Lady Studios, was here doing it with us at the Maple House. And I remember, we were putting all the rack gear in the racks and running all the cables. And, I was just doing it very meticulously and all neat. And Eddie just started throwing cables at me. He's like, "You're going too slow." So it's just, it's funny to tie that together and have those experiences and also understand the history of, those places you were mentioning where I grew up in New York and just in general about music. And just to comment on one thing you were saying, what I used to love doing as a kid was, listening to a new CD or tape or record or whatever it was, and taking out the liner notes and seeing, not only the lyrics, but who worked on the track, who produced it. And, I had the same kind of clap back from my mom being like, why do you need to know all that stuff? So just commonalities, I guess.
Well, no, that's great because, well, you had a little bit more of a difficult time because it was very small on the CDs, how the CDs are made. But yeah, I did the same thing with the album. You know how some kids will eat breakfast and read the back of the cereal box? That's how I was with every single album. And then, oh, this is great. I actually won a contest rock quiz, which was on
Nice.
NEW. And then, what's really fascinating is working with the people that you grew up listening to, and then you become one of their colleagues. Mind blowing.
Yeah.
So I studied this. It was by Rolling Stone magazine. It was a black book, and it had the history of every single rock band that you can imagine, and it would give you the tree. Now, Ghost Hounds, you're just by what you said, you're in the tree of Eddie Kramer, which makes you in the tree of Jimi Hendrix. So how cool
Yeah.
is that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's pretty great.
It's mind blowing. And also it's a huge trigger for imposter syndrome sometimes. It's like,
Yeah.
whoa.
Well, man, I got to hand it to you. I'm glad that we had this part of the discussion. I've never talked about this kind of stuff on any of the interviews. So, and every interview should be something of its own that stands on its own. This was incredible. I really appreciate talking to you guys. Trey, nice meeting you.
Nice
Johnny,
meeting you
nice
as well.
meeting you as well. I wish you all the success in the world when you make it really big. Just remember your buddy Zach when you get your Grammy. It's like, this guy said that we could do it back in the beginning. He's probably dead by now, but this is fantastic to have this Grammy. I think good things are going to happen to you guys. You just, like everything else, stick to it, which is what I told Ed Sheeran when I thought he was my intern.
Well, good. That's good company. That means we're under your umbrella, which is under his umbrella. So
Yeah.